Jack, it's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
You bet. It's great to be on your show. Thank you, Joe.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So let's begin our journey into your work by asking you this. 5 years ago, the pandemic changed so many things for all of us. How did you get through that era, and how did it influence the way that you live today in 2025?
Oh, such an interesting question. Well, 5 years ago, I was actually a multimedia journalist for a school district here in Colorado, Jeffco Public Schools, and this followed a long career as a multimedia guy for NBC Denver. And so I took a lot of those skills in photography and storytelling, and I started a YouTube channel. And I started doing stories about teachers and students and programs in this really huge school district that had 87,000 kids.
Wow.
And I just felt that even during the pandemic, this was a story that was worth telling. How did these educators find their way through the darkness? And I was amazed at what I found and just the nimble thinking and how quickly they were able to pivot from the classroom to online and still make it engaging. Not for everybody, not for all the students, but for a great majority of them. So 5 years ago, I was fortunate. I still had an office to go to and a commute. And I think that helped preserve my sanity a little bit. It was about a 40-minute drive. And so I did a lot of thinking about what was going on at the time and my role in the world. And so I just felt, unlike a lot of people who I know went through a lot of mental trauma through this whole thing, that I had a purpose that I needed to fulfill. And the other thing that was really fueling all of this was the unexpected loss of my wife Becky, my sweet Becky, and we'd been together almost 49 years when God took her, and I think the grief from that also helped fuel that part of my life because in addition to doing my work as a multimedia journalist, I was also pouring a lot of, those emotions into a book I was writing.
So, if we wanted to get a good view of your career, and I put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds in a schoolhouse, it's career day, and one of the kids is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you say what you do now and work yourself back in a timeline they would understand?
Sure. Well, I guess I would just say that I try to tell authentic stories about people that are close to me. That's kind of my current, role. The two books that I have written, the first is called Poppy, a novel about a colorful Colorado life. It's about a guy who helped start the Denver Art Museum back in the early 20th century. And he connected with Native American artists and elevated them and their work at a time when there was a lot of racism about Native Americans and the art they created. And not only did he elevate that art, but he also pioneered really interesting ways to showcase it at the Denver Art Museum. And those techniques are still in use today at the Denver Art Museum and at museums all over the world, in fact. Then the other book about Becky, which I just told you about, and this was about a remarkable encounter she had with a stranger at our Catholic church here in Colorado. And to me, it revealed God in a very personal and powerful way that has set me on a spiritual journey that I'm still on 6 years later that has took me all over the world. So I guess if I was to tell these 12-year-olds, that's what I'm doing currently as a writer. And then before that, well, I was the guy that got up in the middle of the night and put together the news for people to read when you woke up in the morning and turned on the TV and wanted to know what was going on in the world and what your weather was going to be like if you needed to put on a sweater. And I loved all of it, and I still love all of it.
So, what did you want to be at 12 years old? What was your dream gig?
It was, believe it or not, a storyteller. And
Okay.
it's interesting that you pick that age. My dad was part of the golden age of Hollywood, and he was connected with shows that I'm sure some people probably have never heard of, including one called Love That Bob, starred a guy named Bob Cummings, and he was like a heartthrob of the 40s and 50s. And this was a sitcom. They were all done on film back then. And the storyline was he was a fashion photographer with a flying car. And he would fly around to his different photo shoots with these glamorous babes. Well, anyway, my dad was a very creative person. And one day I came to him and said, Dad, I've got this book report about this book I just read. And the book was Tom Swift. And Tom Swift was a very popular series for kids in the 50s. It was about a boy inventor, Tom Swift and his rocket ship, Tom Swift and his nuclear submarine. There was a whole bunch of titles.
Yeah.
And I said, I just don't want to do a regular old book report. I think that's kind of boring. Have you got any ideas? And so my dad, who was this creative guy, said, well, how about a shoebox theater? And I said, well, what's that? He said, well, you get yourself a shoebox and you cut a couple of slots in the bottom of it. And then you get some cash register tape. It's a little roll of paper. And you draw some different scenes from the book as you're talking about it. And you pull that through the bottom of the shoebox. And so that's what I did. And looking back, that was my first real introduction into the world of storytelling.
Yeah.
And after my book report, I got a standing O in the classroom. And it kind of set the tone for everything that was to follow.
So the beauty of this life and us intermingling as humans is the ability to share a story. It's what connects us. It's what makes us feel like there's purpose. Who is one of the best storytellers that you've ever been around?
Mm, boy. I'm going to say Ron Mitchell. Again, a name that you've never heard of. People in Colorado will probably know him if they're of a certain age. Ron Mitchell was a reporter at my station in Denver, KUSA TV, the NBC affiliate. And the reason I say Ron is he just had this knack for taking a story and making it personal for the viewer and the listener. But it was more than just that, because if it wasn't for Ron Mitchell, I really would not have ended up in television in doing a lot of these things. Because when I was in high school, he came to speak at my journalism class. It was very impromptu. He was at our high school and they were doing some kind of a story and they were packing up their news car. And my journalism teacher, we called her Mrs. Mack, she looked outside the window, noticed their news vehicle, and opened the window and yelled down, hey, come on up and tell us about your day. So Ron and his photographer did. And I'll tell you, Joe, everything about that experience, it was intoxicating for me. When I heard about the deadlines they were under and the challenges they faced in trying to get a story put together by deadline, and what's so surreal about that whole experience was that interaction, that 10 or 15 minutes that he spent in the classroom, just set me out on this journey of journalism and storytelling. And so fast forward years later, I end up as Ron's executive producer.
Wow.
And when he would come to me, because part of my duty was to approve scripts for our newscasts, and he would turn in his script, and I said, Ron, I got to tell you, I just feel out of my depth here. I mean, you're the reason I'm in this business, and you want me to approve your script? And he said, that's your job. You're the executive producer. You need to do it. And so, that's all the confidence boost I needed. And I'm proud to say we worked on a number of projects together. One of the last ones was on the Millennium and all the trauma that was connected with that. Speaking of the trauma from COVID, but one of the things I try to do in our storytelling for this special we did together was the changes in journalism and the migration to digital storytelling and all of the challenges that were connected with that. But to the end, Ron just brought that same sense of creativity and personalization even to the pieces of that program. And I am so honored that he was a part of my professional life.
In all of the realms of journalism that I've kind of dipped myself into, it's almost seemed like TV was a different world. There's a pace that's different. There's a pressure that's different. There's a
Mhm.
whole world that's different from like print and other things that radio, other things. What was it about that world that made you wake up and feel that adrenaline and want to do it every day?
I guess not knowing what that day was going to bring the minute I walked into the newsroom.
Yeah,
It could be, just I don't even know if this is applicable anymore given the times we live in, but a slow news day. What am I going to do to fill what started as a half hour? By the time I left that particular station, we were 4.5 hours of content every morning. What am I going to do to fill this? Two, there's a phone call from the assignment desk, and there's this breaking story that is now going to dominate your life and the news cycle for the next several weeks. And that happened on a number of occasions. So I guess it was just the nature of the beast being so unexpected. That was one thing, and then being up to the challenge of trying to take a lot of information coming at you like a fire hose and still trying to be, as the executive producer or the line producer, the calm in the midst of that storm so that you're not freaking out, because that really sets the tone for the whole crew and how you're going to respond to something. One of my biggest challenges in that arena was the Columbine shootings.
yeah,
And it's so bizarre, Joe, because what started that whole thing, I had sent a news crew to what was going to be a live shot for our noon show on the opening of Club Disney. They had a series of clubs that they put in malls across the country. It was just a family friendly club. And, it was going to be just this sort of light little live shot. And about a half hour before air, the scanner, we listened to scanners in newsrooms, of course,
yeah.
started lighting up with all this chatter from Jeffco Sheriff and just a number of sources. It was initially reported as a brush fire from smoke because these killers had set off smoke bombs to sort of divert attention. And so, you're listening with the half ear about as this is starting to accelerate, and the other half, okay, I need to think about resources. What am I going to do? You start hearing about trench coats and long guns, and then it gets horribly serious. And you use what tools you have to tell the story, which included a Bell Jet Ranger helicopter and a reporter. And you just start realizing the enormity of the story, and you're so focused on getting on the air and trying to get it right, and you didn't always get it right. One of the things that plagued the coverage, um, we, unbeknownst to me, were put on CNN worldwide once we hit the air, and people started realizing what was happening. And for some reason, somebody in Salt Lake City was watching the live coverage and called the newsroom posing as a student hiding inside the school as the killers were going through the hallway.
Mm,
And we put that person on the air, and only to find out later that it was this prankster. And boy, did that hurt.
mm,
Obviously your credibility and everything else. I mean, overall, we, I think, did a good job given all the circumstances.
yeah,
But that was a very, very serious wake up call in terms of the screening that we needed to do for phoners, is what we
sure.
called them, to get people through. But I couldn't really fault the desk at the time because, just like I said, the fire hose is going.
Oh, yeah,
All these different inputs are happening, and sometimes stuff's going to get through.
yeah,
And that was one of those times. Well, anyway, so after several hours in the control room, and this is a very pressurized environment when you're in the midst of breaking news. You're sort of sublimating all of your emotions. And I was the parent of two high schoolers at the time. And I just remember when it was finally over, of course, you're drained physically, emotionally, mentally, because now it's all sinking in about how horrible this was. I just remember going home and curling up and just in the fetal position, just bawling my eyes out because it all came out. How can we be so cruel to one another? How did this even happen? What is this darkness? Trying to understand it. And all these years later, it's still happening. We haven't fixed it. Don't know if we ever will.
Um, yeah, not in my lifetime. I don't believe. I hope it happens, but I remember that day clearly. In fact, I'm a IT technician for a large school district, and obviously I have to keep it in mind when I'm coming in and out of buildings. But there was a counselor that was at one of our schools at one point, and she was actually in that building, and it was one of the reasons why she became a counselor. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
there's in any tragedy, any darkness, there's going to be light that's going to come out of it, and the fact that she decided to dedicate her life to helping others, it's good.
Well, Joe, that story is so resonant. I heard it many times, as I said, when I went to work for Jeffco, which again was kind of a full circle moment because I ended up doing a lot of storytelling for Columbine High School. And one of those pieces was on the 20th and last big anniversary. There is a public park adjoining Columbine called Clement Park. And every year, they would gather to remember those who had died, those who were murdered. And they asked me if I would do a video to show on a big screen. And the governor and several mayors, and of course, the school population, people that were there that day, they were all in the park to watch this thing. And I decided to make my video a love letter from the then current class of Columbine High kids to those who had died in 1999. And it was a very, very powerful thing for me to do. And I think some of the feelings that I had felt the day that it happened, I was able to finally confront in doing this piece. And I had the students addressing the camera lens. And I interspersed what they were saying about how Columbine had not only survived that dark day, but was thriving in academics, in art, in athletics, in all these different ways, in the community outreach they would do. And I interspersed that with home video clips that the families of the kids who had died gave me. And it was, I think, a pretty effective, love letter
Yeah.
from 2019 to 1999.
So, who would you consider your hero, broadcast or otherwise? Who inspired you to become who you are?
Mm. Hmm. Well, I'm going to have to say Jesus. He has been my friend and my walking companion through many, many different crosses and blessings. And I didn't always know that he was there until really Becky passed away. And I am getting to know him every day in a very powerful way. And writing the book about her and talking about this journey I've been on has made me realize how much he means to me. And this faith walk that I'm on has included a pilgrimage to the Holy Land right before the current war, and a visit to Marian apparition sites, because for Catholics, Mary is a very important figure for us.
Hmm.
And she figures prominently in Becky's story and what happened. And so I went to Fatima and to Lourdes and a place called Medjugorje, all these Marian apparition sites. And so that has all helped inform and strengthen my relationship with Christ. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I get it. So let me ask you this. What has been the motivator for you, especially after losing your wife after that long? That it's unimaginable. What has been the motivator for you to wake up every day to create this work, to inspire other
Mhm.
lives? Undoubtedly, your work is sending ripples into others. What has been that motivation for you?
I think to honor Becky, to honor the creator, I think we're all put here for a reason. It's not just coincidence, it's not just chance. And so for me, I just feel that he has given me these skills as a storyteller, and to just sit on them would not be a good thing.
Yeah,
You know, there was a book written some time back called The Dark Night of the Soul,
yeah.
and it draws on ancient Catholic, thinking. And that is when something bad happens in life, you have a couple of choices. You can either sit in the darkness and the sadness and, oh, pity me, or you can mine that darkness for the gold that it contains. And it can be the fuel for the fire. And so that has been my sort of mantra ever since. I try to keep mining this so that I can maybe, by telling Becky's story or by telling whatever story, I'm helping others. And as you say, it may just be a little ripple in a pond, um, but that's what I feel God has put me on this earth to do. And maybe in sharing these stories, others will find little nuggets that they can apply to their own lives.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You walk into a room that looks a lot like the room that you grew up in when you were a kid, and you sit down on a bed, and a little kid comes in and opens this book up, and it's your life that you don't even know it's your life. And you're looking at it. Would you believe that what's happened to you? Would you believe that this is the life that you've had?
I don't think I would, Joe.
Yeah,
I don't think I would because there was a point in my life. I mean, I we could be here for hours, but I had a period where I came from a very dysfunctional family, and where just paying the rent and getting through the next day was a miracle. And I never really thought beyond the next day
yeah.
and what that would look like. What would that future look like? And now I just feel so blessed that these things have happened in my life, that I still have my mental acuity and my physical abilities. And again, it's all God's will. But for now, He seems to be blessing me. So I'm going to just take it and run with it and try to make every day count.
So if you were going through that book and you have to put your finger on a page and say, I'm the proudest that that happened,
Hmm.
what in that book rises to the top?
Seeing Becky for the first time at a school dance and asking her to dance.
Yeah,
That was the turning point in my life. It was the really looking back the start of my faith journey. It was everything.
yeah.
And yeah, that's the moment.
So, as a journalist, as somebody presenting stories, if you could get into a time machine and go back and cover a story, one story in this lexicon of such a thick journalistic archive of America, where are you going to cover the story?
Well, you just really asked some good ones.
Thank you.
My dad was a World War II veteran and a Purple Heart recipient. He was part of the Normandy invasion. And like so many of his generation, he did not talk about what happened, but uh, it clearly impacted him. In fact, it was really the main driver for his alcoholism, which was a huge obstacle in his life as a creative. And I think I would have liked to have gone, as tough as it would have been, I would have liked to have gone back to that moment that impacted him in the way that it did, that changed the course of his life.
Yeah,
I would like to have known what exactly that was.
yeah. Wow, what a great answer. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, colleagues that you've worked with, everyone that gets your books, everyone that knows you in a different variety of roles, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I just want to be honest about my faith, about Me, I'm still working on humility. I think that's a very important component. As a Catholic, we want to be less, so he will be more. And I guess right now, moving forward, that's what I really want to work on. And I'm not sure that being on your podcast is helping that.
Let me ask you this. Are you excited about a young American Pope?
I need to know more about Leo, but
Yeah,
yes, young in a Catholic term,
that's
yes.
right. That's what I'm saying. It's relative, right?
It is relative. I get the sense that, he is from here, but he didn't really have a lot of his formative experiences here. It was in other places, like, the southern continent. Um, but yes, I'm hopeful. Um, I am more inspired really by the church leaders that are in my world, and seeing those young, and they are young. The
Yeah,
priests that we have are young, and the ones that are in seminary now. There's one who I know really well who just, I think, turned 23. And the fact that so many young people are saying yes, I think in answer to this world and all of its uncertainty and its darkness. And they are realizing that, okay, if I want to make a difference, this is a big sacrifice, but it's a key way to make a difference. And so I'm inspired by them. But I'll keep an eye on Pope Leo. I'm glad he likes pizza and baseball and
yeah.
all of that. And but yeah, I'm thankful for the people that I know intimately.
So the one thing, as we mentioned, being in Kansas City, every time I go and see the mountains, I always wonder with the locals, do you ever get tired of looking at the mountain ranges? Yeah, no. It's always wonderful.
I am a fifth generation Coloradan, Joe,
Yeah,
and I just cannot believe how lucky I am to live in this beautiful place. Yes, we have a lot of challenges in Colorado from all of our growth and all of the impacts from that growth. But especially now, just as the aspen are starting to turn, just the privilege of being able to drive up to Rocky Mountain National Park and to see those golden stands against the granite backdrop of the mountains. And if you're lucky, you'll hear the elk bugle.
yeah,
My gosh. I mean, people come from all over the world to enjoy this beauty, and I'm living it. I'm
yeah,
living in it.
yeah.
So, I am so privileged. 'Tis a privilege to live in Colorado. It's true.
Oh, absolutely. So if anybody wants to pick up your books, they want to reach out, any of the other good business in the world, where's the best place to go?
I think probably my website, and that's sandgoatmanorpublishing.com. It's a mouthful, and if I could do it all over again, I'd change it in a heartbeat. Sandgoatmanorpublishing.com. It's got information on the books and some multimedia and just all kinds of little goodies for you.
And I will make it easy. I'll put the links in the show notes. People just have to click and they'll be right there. This has been wonderful, Jack. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time and best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe. It's been an honor.
Yeah, thank you. All right.